Morning, everyone. Happy Victory Monday. Possibly the last Victory Monday of the season, so we'll cherish it as much as we can, of course. I understand that it's not a very meaningful win, but we'll do what we can with it. We'll get whatever we can out of it and move forward. And specifically, we're going to move forward towards the future, which is hopefully a little better than the present, because the present overall is still, it's not anything that we're really that excited about. And I like to, when moving forward into that future, really focus on what is going to be here going forward from this year. Because the thing is, this Seahawks team, they have a pretty big to-do list. It doesn't really matter what they do in the grand scheme of things this offseason. They can get rid of everything. They can keep everything. They can get rid of some. They can get rid of most. They can get rid of half. It doesn't really matter. The to-do list is pretty big for this team if they want to be competing at a high level again. Just off the top of my head, if we trade Wilson, we're going to need a quarterback. Probably just a stopgap quarterback for a year, but you still got to get him. Even if Rashad Penny resigns, we need help at running back. If we lose Gerald Everett, we need help at tight end. And that's even if we do keep Will Dissly. We need help at left tackle. We need help at center. And if the solution at center is to move Damian Lewis to center, then we need help at guard. We need help at, I would say, 3 tech and 5 tech, maybe even a little bit of 1 tech if we lose Al Woods and Brian Monet. We need help at linebacker, mostly the outside linebacker spots. If we lose Wagner, if we lose DJ Reed and Sidney Jones, or really DJ Reed or Sidney Jones, we need help at corner. If we lose Quandre Diggs, we need help at safety. If we lose Jason Myers, if we cut him, that is, we need help at kicker. So there's a lot to do with this team. And it's not very realistic to do all that in one off season. Most teams aren't able to pull that off. And the teams that would be able to pull that off would probably have a ton of draft picks, which we don't have. We have a below average number of draft picks in terms of value anyway. So I know it's not likely we're able to fill all those holes in one off season. Even if we go all in on spending every dollar we have in free agency, even if we go all out in the draft to really address all these holes that we could have, even if we do all those things, I just know that it's going to be hard to fill it all. So I'm looking at this team to fill some of those holes with what they already have. For instance, in that list I just reeled off, I did not mention right tackle because Jay Curhan has played so well lately that it seems inevitable that he is going to be the right tackle of the 2022 Seahawks starting. So Jay Curhan's emergence over the last month has reduced our need for a right tackle to what was once a great need to a very minor need. Like, as in, we might only need a backup right tackle. Rashad Penny, playing so well over the last month, has reduced the need for a running back somewhat. Not all the way, of course, not even close to that. I'm not going to pretend that we're in an area where we can just roll with what we have at running back and be fine. But Rashad Penny's emergence over the last month has reduced the need at running back if we bring him back. So I'm constantly on the lookout for things like that. So part of that includes overreacting because I'm desperate. We're kind of desperate right now for things to reduce our to-do list by even a little bit this offseason. With all the things that we need to bring in, all the holes that we need to fill, if we can fill a hole from in-house even a little bit, it's big. So when I saw that game yesterday against the Lions, my first thought, really, and I know that some people were caught up in what Wilson did, what Metcalf did, what Penny did, maybe what Curhan did, maybe what Phil Haynes did, but honestly, the most interesting thing that I took away from that game was what Cody Barton did. Because Barton is a guy who I have basically forgotten about. And he came in for an injured Bobby Wagner in that game, played almost the whole game, and played pretty well. He didn't lead the team in tackles because of Brooks, but I thought Barton played in a pretty effective game. So even though it's just one game against a terrible team with a lot of injuries, even though Barton has kind of teased us before, even though Barton has gotten very little playing time over the last few years, despite being a third round pick, which indicates the coaching staff has seen something they don't like, I got to at least take a look at this, and I got to ask the question, could Cody Barton be part of the solution at linebacker going forward? Bobby Wagner's injury yesterday should probably be the final nail in the coffin for his Seattle career. If there was any thought of bringing him back, that injury, which sounds right now like it's significant, we'll find out more later, if it is at all significant, I feel like the conversation really needs to end. So, if we lose Wagner this offseason, is Cody Barton capable of helping out at that position going forward? So, Cody Barton's been here for, this is now his third year. He hasn't played a whole lot. He played a little bit at the end of 2019. He got a little bit of action early this year when Brooks was getting benched for some of the mistakes he was making. Played, I think, a little bit in 2020, not a whole lot. But he's been a guy who a lot of people, myself included, have kind of already given up on. However, him looking effective in that game against the Lions, I know it's just one game, and I would hate to fall into the trap of biting down on a player's potential because of one good game in quite possibly the most preseason-esque environment imaginable. Because honestly, Cody Barton played good in our actual preseason too, and this game was not that different from a preseason game. However, I'm forced to explore this, because if we could maybe hold off on spending a 4th round pick or a 5th round pick on a linebacker this offseason, or spending $4 or $5 million on a linebacker in free agency this offseason to address other needs, that helps. So in order to try to figure out where Cody Barton has a chance to fit in here, I went back to his some of the draft profiles that people wrote about him the year he came out, which was the 2019 draft. And I tried to get a feel for what, at the time, the prognosticators thought that Cody Barton could be. So we're going to start at the Draft Network. They have 3 analysts who go through a lot of these prospects, Solak, Marino, and Krabs. The only analyst here who really thought that Cody Barton had starting potential in the NFL was Solak. So I want to focus on his analysis of Cody Barton's game based off what he was doing at Utah. And I want to highlight a couple things here. So you can read all this stuff if you want to, but a couple of notes that I want to really highlight here. As a strong side backer, quickly senses climbers and is not afraid to initiate contact. As a weak side linebacker, will shoot the first gap he sees even when slow playing pursuit over the top might be advantageous. So the main takeaway here is that he looks better as a strong side or Sam linebacker than a weak side linebacker or a Will. There are some other notes in here that indicate that he thinks that Cody Barton could make a good Sam, but the main thing I want to highlight here is coverage. Solak highlights his man coverage skills, especially. Very good on third down and red zone coverage of backs and tight ends. Surprisingly skilled at working through rubs and picks to get space on halfback routes. Zone coverage is fine, but not as exciting as man coverage. And he goes on to say that he thinks that, let me see here. He could play some Mike and some Sam in the NFL. So let's keep that in mind going forward. Now, the other 2 analysts are not as high on Barton. Marino, I want to just highlight his coverage notes, has the fluidity to get in depth in his drops and slide into throwing lanes, has athleticism to run with tight ends and running backs, not great anticipation and awareness. Marino is not a big fan of Barton, thinks that he should be like a late day 3 pick, so he actually thinks we overdrafted him. Krabs, not radically different, but if you look at the coverage, he's got some modest mobility to play in zone coverage underneath, but he's otherwise pretty not very complimentary on his coverage skills. And he also says that he sees Cody Barton as being a 7th round pick, so he was not a fan. Both Marino and Krabs saw him as a special teamer pretty much exclusively. Now, I want to go over to his NFL.com draft profile from a couple years ago, And if you take a look at the analysis of him by Lance Zierlein, he notes, and I really want to highlight this because this is the thing that is kind of make or break for me. He lists a series of strengths of Barton's play, but the thing that I want to note is man cover experience with above average zone awareness and recognizes route combinations and flows to incoming targets. So we've got multiple analysts saying that this guy seems like he's pretty good in coverage. And I also want to go to this Bleacher Report, scouting report from the 2019 draft, where they list his strengths, and one of the strengths they list is coverage experience allows him to play in space with route recognition and awareness. So one recurring thing with Cody Barton seems to be he can cover for a linebacker. A couple analysts were critical of him in some areas, but the reason why I want to draw attention to this is consistent with what I've seen from Barton so far in his NFL career, which is not much. But I remember in 2019 when he started playing after Kendricks got hurt, I noticed that Barton seemed like he could play pretty good coverage linebacker stuff. I think in the playoff game in Philadelphia, he had multiple pass deflections and looked pretty good when he was asked to cover. His weaknesses seem to be more about his ability to go sideline to sideline as a run stuffer. So, thinking about what we have right now at linebacker, where to me the clear problem at linebacker is we've got Jordan Brooks playing Will. And Jordan Brooks is not good in coverage, and he's frequently put into coverage as a will linebacker, and that weakness is frequently exposed. Could Cody Barton be an answer at will because his coverage skills will allow him to be effective in that role when Brooks moves into the middle, hopefully next year? Theoretically, it makes some sense. Now, there are some clear weaknesses with Cody Barton. A lot of these scouting reports, you can read them, they say he lacks short area burst and quickness, and that is consistent with what we've seen so far from him in the NFL. Doesn't seem like he has a ton of strength, which is consistent with what we've seen in the NFL as well, I think. And overall, I'm looking at Cody Barton and I see a guy who could be a passable starter at best. I see no superstar potential with him. I don't see anything that tells me this guy's going to ever make a Pro Bowl or even come close. The only Pro Bowl votes he might ever get are from his extended family. So Cody Barton, the ceiling is low, but beggars can't be choosers. So could he be a will? Could he be a starting will linebacker with Jordan Brooks playing the mic? Or, since this initial scouting report that I went into seemed to highlight his ability to potentially play the Sam linebacker role, could he be the starting Sam next year? Because granted, it's not as big a deal as Will, but we need a Sam. And it doesn't seem like this team has a whole lot of interest in playing Darrell Taylor at the Sam, which is kind of what I thought we were going to do. But it doesn't seem like we're doing it that often. If anything, we're giving those snaps to Benson Mayowa, and he is what he is. He's okay, but nothing exciting there. He very rarely does anything impressive. So could Cody Barton be the future as a Sam? It seems like at least one of these scouting reports thought that he projected to be a Sam in the NFL, and Sams have to cover too. So, okay. But, what about, and I don't really like this, but I want to mention it here real quick. What if Cody Barton could be a mediocre middle linebacker in the NFL, and then you keep Brooks at will? I don't like it, but I will say this. Brooks is not playing badly at will right now at all. It's not like he's a problem. He's a problem in some areas, but he's adding plenty of value to this defense right now. So I don't like that, but the fact that this guy may be able to slot in at any of the three linebacker positions might make this a little more viable. So if Cody Barton can be a starting linebacker for this defense in 2022, that takes another item off the to-do list because now you've got Brooks and you've got Barton, and then you just have to find depth for the most part because you only need 2 good linebackers in the NFL unless he's playing Sam, in which case, yeah, you still need help at the will. But again, wherever you can help, help. All right, guys, so that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think of Barton. I know he hasn't done a lot in his NFL career, and I know we're basing a lot off of one pretty good game, but we're trying to find things to change the way we're thinking, right? We're trying to find things to challenge our perspective a little bit. So let me know what you guys think. Peace out. Go Hawks. Cody Barton, what do you got?